so I thought as we looked at business plans, it was really important to have those that we consider our funders in the marketplace, who are also actively involved with our organizations and have an understanding of the various needs and the marketing challenges that we all have. So one of the things that I did was, let's see if I can actually get to this, is we talked about the fundamentals of a business plan that you can find anywhere, on the internet and get a form and pull it up. But there are often things that are part of our business plans that are those unexpected things that you have to consider that are the realities of day-to-day life in the workplace or in our businesses, in nonprofit or in for-profit in general. So one of the things I did is I sent them, there was an article that was published online, and you've got copies of this in your PowerPoint, but it's the 10 unexpected things every business plan needs. And as we were talking about that, I wanted us to think of things a little outside the box, a little differently for how they fundamentally impact us on a daily basis. So I sent these questions or these points to the panel so that they would be prepared to maybe talk about how they see this within their own organizations. Because I think, as we all know as nonprofits, we need to actually function as for-profit businesses. We need to be considered on the same level as for-profit businesses. So with that, one of the first things, and I'm just going to kind of hit you down the line with them. We talked about this briefly with Larry, review of the competition being so important, knowing your competition. One of the things we encourage with United Way is that you guys sit on a funds distribution panel if you're applying for funds with United Way, because then you get to see how people are doing really well, and as Larry said, you steal the good ideas. It works. But with you guys, if companies focus only on themselves in their business plans, they're making a big mistake. One of the quotes was, it's important to know your competition and how your business differs. You do not want to be placed into a substitution category, clearly outlining your competitors' strengths and weaknesses in your business plan to help your business position itself over the competition. So with that, how do you guys see that? Do you see that within your own companies? How do you evaluate competition? How do you review them? How do you utilize your analysis of them in what you're doing each day to be more successful? Jennifer, you want to start?
Sure. In chamber work, specifically as the primary economic development organization for the Pensacola MSA, I found this question intriguing because competition is really what we do on a day-to-day basis. And confidentiality in that when we work with companies to either expand or relocate here is crucial, because for them, if their competition knows that especially if they're publicly traded, if their competition is aware that perhaps they're looking at relocating here to Pensacola, it could affect stock. It could also affect their competition and give them that inside knowledge that perhaps this company is growing and expanding, and how can we become more competitive? So on a day-to-day basis, that's what we look at a lot, and kind of having a competitive edge, whether the companies we're working with have a competitive edge based on their percentage of the average salary we look at here in our community. Whether they're competitive in the sense of bringing new dollars into our economy, they're exporting a good or a service, and whether they're in a target industry for our community. So our community is being very specific on what competitive industries we're targeting to bring new jobs to the area. But from a nonprofit standpoint, I like what you said about functioning as a for-profit, ensuring that we're not just duplicating efforts.
I would just add that at Cox, obviously competition is something we deal with day in, day out, every day. I think it's interesting because there's still that perception in the community that we're the cable company and many people still call us a monopoly. I can tell you that is anything but the truth. We're so far from being a monopoly, and competition is something we deal with every day, whether it's from satellite providers, phone companies, other internet services that are out there, commercial service providers that provide fiber services to businesses, over-the-top providers, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. In some areas, we even compete with local municipalities who are offering broadband and video services. So it's something that has to be very much at the forefront of what we do. And I think the key is to engage our employees in competitive efforts from top to bottom. It has to be something that everyone owns. It's not something that we do have competitive teams that focus on this, but we really try to engage all of our employees so they all understand what the competitive landscape is like. They understand what Cox's strengths are against our competitors, and they understand what our weaknesses are against our competitors as well. And we use a variety of different tools to educate these employees, whether it's competitive intelligence teams, friendly contests inside the company just to make people aware of what's going on out there with our competitors. We subscribe to a number of professional competitive intelligence databases, a lot of different assets that we pull information from to make sure we keep that competitive edge.
Oh, sure. I'm sure banks in the last year or two have considered credit unions in a whole new competitive way than it's ever been perceived before. So,
Well, I would come at it from a little bit of a different angle. Obviously, Navy Federal is a financial institution, so we've got obviously really big banks who are our competitors. But what we've done is we've really searched out this, what you guys have got to do is find out who we are. What is our market? Who do we want to be? And we want to stick to that. What is our mission? And for us, of course, that's serving the men and women of the military in the best fashion. That's our first and our foremost. That's what we always turn to. So oddly enough, that kind of makes it a different competitor than USA Fed. A strong competitor, a valid competitor, a great one. But we're always trying to remember who we are, remember who we best want to serve, what is our mission, and keep doing that in that angle. Not try to go off in all different sorts of areas that aren't really our
And I guess I would echo that. I think one of the things that if you think about Gulf Power Company, many of you, of course, if you're living in the service area where we provide service, you go, well, I don't really have a choice. Gulf Power doesn't have any real competition, so from that perspective, we are on out. But when it comes to the way or the type of service you get for the energy that you consume, of course, we do have competition in the type of energy. It could be gas, and in some cases, with our larger customers, commercial and industrial customers, that's a real big deal because they operate some of their processes that way. So we train our folks in our marketing area to be able to effectively communicate with our customers. And I want to pick up on something here that was just said, and I think it's important, what we try to focus on, and that is this customer value concept. We do sort of exhaustive evaluations around customer value benchmarks and customer value testing to determine and to ensure that what we're providing to our customer does provide the value. My encouragement is to suggest that if you are involved in your business planning efforts and you're thinking about what are some of the things my competition is doing, great to know what your competition is doing. Probably even more important is to understand what is the value that's expected by those folks you're serving, and to ensure that you're at that point where their customer value is important, is where it needs to be. Because I know for a fact that there are times when you can get distracted by the competition. We sometimes think about and had an era back in the 90s, early 2000s in our industry where something called retail access was a big deal going across the country, where a lot of electric service providers were competing for customers. And so what we found was, as a Southern company, we sort of took the position that we weren't going to really play in that game. We were going to continue to do what we do best in the region we do best with the services that we provide best. And we were going to sort of stay away from that and continue to provide exceptional value. What we saw was a lot of folks got into the competition era, and it just kind of sort of eroded the quality of service. And so I can tell you right now, most of you sitting here that take service from us probably want basically two things. You want reliable service, and you want a good price, or a reasonable price. And if you get that, that's pretty high on the customer value chart. So that's what we sort of try to focus on, is making sure that we're providing exceptional customer value to those customers that we deal with, while also being very well educated on the competitive issues and things and challenges that confront us, again, under the umbrella of delivering that exceptional value.
and I think that's a very good point, JC, because I would say that most of us in this group are very uncomfortable with considering ourselves competitors with other nonprofits. We don't like that term. We all shy away from it. We know we're competing for funding, but we almost don't want to say that. But it is specifically knowing yourself, knowing your mission, as you said, staying true to your mission, but also knowing what's important. And from the funder side of it, we have to know what they're looking for, so that we can be competitive with what we have to offer, which what United Way has to offer may be very, very different than what Community Action has to offer. We're all very different. We're all competing for the same dollars. what's important out in that marketplace that we have to consider in competition. It is a totally different way of looking at competition, but we have to do it effectively. And we were very purposeful in this panel here because we do hear monopoly, you know. Well, why would they even think about competition? They do. Every presentation I've ever been to with Gulf Power, you guys talk about value and customer service and what are we doing right, because that's how they place themselves in competition. We all have to, I think, as business professionals, also look at that in a very different way in our business planning. So, and you know, you think of maybe federal. Most of us think, oh, maybe federal, that's business planning. They're nonprofit too. They're a credit union. We can all do it that well as long as we look at it the right way as we're getting out and planning for our businesses. So, very helpful. Innovation, the second thing in the items that sometimes we don't always think about because we got this down and we're busy and we can do this well. What do we have to consider in our business plan? When we're utilizing innovation, we have to make it a priority to look at it from the start. So as you're redoing your business plan or tweaking on your business plan, don't forget to put innovation in there. And what they say is innovation must be a critical component of every business plan. This is a CEO of one of those online companies that they're business strategists. And she said if you make innovation a part of your plan, the process becomes intentional, not reactive or accidental. I think sometimes we become very reactive because some of those factors we talked about today, sequestration, we're becoming reactive. It's not innovative, we're reacting to the fact that our funds may get cut and we have to switch our way of thinking. So as we begin to do our business plan, maybe if you guys can talk about within your companies, how do you position innovation as a part of the planning process, not a reactionary process, but a part of the planning process within the company? And what would you share with them how you effectively do it to take advantage of?
Just to build on JT's thought from earlier, I think customer value and looking for that customer value proposition leads to innovation. If you're looking at, competitively, what do we need to do differently? What do we need to do to keep our customers happy? And I think that leads to innovation. So that's key to us at Cox for keeping our customers happy. In some cases, customers are actually willing to pay a little more if you have a better product, a higher quality product, a more reliable product. So it's not always about the price, but one of the things that we've seen at Cox is a change in how we develop our products because of how customers use them. You know, you think about cable TV 10, 15 years ago, it was a cable TV box, starting into the internet business, but it was still very static, one-way communications. Now people won't be able to take their products and services with them, so mobility is very key. Having it accessible no matter where you are, when you want it, how you want to watch that programming. So that's fostered a culture of innovation that quite frankly has changed Cox dramatically as an organization over the last 10 years or so. And part of how we foster that internally is we reward innovation. We have financial incentive programs for when companies come up with new, when employees come up with new ideas for the company, a new program, a new product, a new service, a new way of listing our service, they're actually financially incented as a result of that. It's a great way to foster innovation because money always goes.
I think for us, innovation is kind of that conduit, in a sense, between our business plan and our strategic plan. For us, our strategic plan is always that connect to purpose for what we're doing every day. How are we reaching, the short-term, long-term goals? But I think from a staff side of a chamber who services many businesses, we're encouraged to be innovative in how we reach those strategic goals. Because, like David said, the culture of delivering products and services, and we deliver services, changes on an ongoing basis. So for us, unless we are innovative and always looking kind of 2 steps ahead on how can we be more efficient and more effective in delivering our services to our customers, to businesses in this community, to businesses outside of this community we're trying to recruit, it's just the key to our success and to continually focusing on these goals. How can we do it more efficiently and more effectively?
So for us at Navy Federal, it's always been our thing to be kind of conservative and stable, and that worked very well for us during the economic downturn. However, things are moving quicker, and as you mentioned, folks want their services. They want to be able to do things word, it does not make my mouth. But, you know, we're just really working hard to get ahead of things while being conservative, while making sure that our members know their money is safe and they're going to get the best rates from us. We've also got to stay innovative and make sure we're getting online services and things that folks in this day and time. It's what's happening.
And at Gulf Park Company, we've had a long history of innovation, and really, most people don't think about the utility being innovative because it's sort of viewed as stodgy and sort of conservative. And in some ways, maybe that's true. But years and years ago, of course, a few years ago, we came out with something that some of you may have heard about if you lived in this region called Good Sense Home Program. That was huge innovation around the residential construction area that really sort of revolutionized the way people view home construction and comfort within the home. Most recently, you've got now what's called Energy Select, which is, of course, an innovative technology that allows customers in their homes to better control and utilize their energy. So we have a number of things that at the customer level and even at our generation level where we're doing a lot of research and development on better ways, more efficient ways to generate the electricity that most people don't really see. But back to the earlier point, at the end of the day, at the center of all of that, is the customer. And we're always thinking about ways to increase value. So we're driven by that. And financially rewarding employees that come up with those things that provide innovation. In fact, as part of the Southern Company, we have something that's called Southern Excellence Awards that we provide to employees who come up with innovative ways of doing things, processes, and improvements in that regard. And so we try to encourage our employees to constantly think about better ways to do what we do, delivering value to our customers. And when those are exceptional, we obviously provide monetary incentives and other incentives. An SEA, a Southern Excellence Award, doesn't have to be monetary directly. It could be other innovative awards. So we try to encourage that. We pursue that with our employees, and basically let employees know what we expect. We actually have folks that work in our field areas. We have folks that are doing innovative things every day, whether it's a different design for a line device or something that they can use to be more effective and efficient in construction. And so we really try to encourage folks to recognize the value of innovation.
All of these talk about innovative ideas and being rewarded for that. Sometimes it's the folks who aren't directly involved or involved in the prior project and have the best ideas. For us, we have a program, the Executive Development Program, and we throw folks in there together from different areas to, look at ideas, suggestions, out of the box thinking, not the way we've always done it, because we've not been the ones doing it to come up with these great ideas. So sometimes it's the people that you don't think are the experts that really are going to give you good ideas.
Well, sometimes we think that innovation has to be this big idea that's going to turn your whole company around. Sometimes innovation is just improving a process, just the day-to-day things that get in the way of serving your customers better. So don't think that innovation has to be this huge thing. You can innovate every day on little things to improve processes and serve your customers and clients better.
And probably one of the other things that I'll share briefly is that sometimes it is important to give folks around you in your business, in your environment, I call it permission to fail, permission to understand that, take a risk maybe that something won't go right. But that's what leads to innovative implementation of innovative ideas, is for folks to know that they're supported and that they have really permission to fail. They don't have to be right every time, because that sometimes precludes innovation when you tell folks are sort of hesitant to step out because they're afraid if they do something that doesn't get a good result, that they're done. So leadership has to play a role in setting that culture to ensure that employees understand that we want you to think outside the box. We want you to ask questions like, why are we doing this way? Why don't we try this? And not to shun that, but to really encourage that and foster it.
One final thing, just because that triggered thought in my mind. As a chamber and as your business community, the chamber offers something called the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is a small business incubator that Larry, I know, is very familiar with, who's our interim director. And to go off of that, it's an opportunity. we realize, 80% of small businesses fail in that initial startup phase. So when we incubate small businesses, many of whom are the size of yours, together, and we allow them to fail kind of in this protected environment to continue innovating and exploring, that's when you really see the success, and that's when these businesses really flourish. When they have kind of that think tank and that ability to brainstorm and bounce ideas off of one another in a protected environment.
So all very, very good points. I think from the nonprofit side, certainly questions always come up. I've heard questions come up to do with, well, okay, yeah, we know we can fail, but we can't really if there are dollars at stake. How do you fail at something? That's where, as leaders, it's our job to get involved with our board and make sure we're all on the same page saying, here's what we're going to try, but this may happen if we fail at this. And are we okay with supporting our team doing this if this doesn't come out the way we thought it was going to come out? Because it can't just be that one person at the table. You have to have those other folks who have the vested interest, understanding that it's okay to fail, and you have to get your buy-out from your board. That this is a new thing we're trying, and we may fail. And I love the fact that this panel is mixed the way it is, because while we do have financial incentives, and that's very challenging for us in nonprofit to think of, can we give a bonus or an award? There are a couple of things that came out in all of your statements that said it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be a little thing. On our evals at United Way, there is one of the things that employees are rated on is innovation and creativity. It can help them raise their overall score, as you call it, with their final end of the year review or their mid-year review. And the cross-training that we talked about with Greg, that he discussed with your disaster planning, helps build that incubation where you have people working together. At United Way, we have our team members participate on funds distribution panels. They're not a part of funds distribution. They may be doing campaign, they may be doing volunteers, but that's specifically to encourage that fostering of innovation. So there are ways that it can be done that don't have to cost us dollars, and those are very important points to recognize. Contingency plan. We've heard about co-op planning, but I think contingencies have to be broader than just disasters, or broader than this one event is going to fail and not raise as much money at the dinner as we thought it was going to be. But it's something that I don't think we always consider when we're doing planning, the contingency for success or failure. So with that, what would you guys say you do with your team or within your business to plan for contingency? So to plan for things that go extremely well, things that don't go so well, and how do you include that in proactive planning instead of reactive situations? It did fail, and now we're reacting to the fact that it failed. How do you include that in the planning process within your companies? Anybody want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I don't have a whole lot here. If you probably don't know a lot about Incubator. Our headquarters is in Vienna, Virginia, and we only moved to Pensacola 10 years ago. So for the longest time, there was probably 3,500 employees in Vienna. We had 500 or 600. Now we have 3,000. But how we tended to roll new ideas out was to pilot them in Pensacola with our small group. That's been a little challenging for us on our end at times, but it also means that we can roll, if it's not working, we're able to roll back out of it without huge damage being done. Now, it's changing because we've grown so much. As we stay in front, we've got to continuously offer new traits, new programs, new products to our members, and sometimes that's not going to work. Whatever it is, it's not going to work. So I think we just have to have that balance between knowing when to cut your losses and roll out, and when to stick to it and say, hey, maybe a little longer. But as we talked about earlier, failure is going to happen sometimes. So if you can make the results a little less, then that's a great thing to do. Sometimes you just have to stay up.
To build on that thought, I think one of the keys to failing successfully is to fail fast. It's okay to fail, learn your lessons, and then go back and try something different. Know when to pull out. It's okay to do that. But if you learn something from the failure, then it really isn't a failure. You've learned a lesson. You can actually grow stronger as a result of that as part of your organization.
Like that fail fast.
For us at the Chamber, flexibility every single day is crucial. If you have a company, pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving my company to Pensacola, but 4 other communities have made us offers and incentive packages. What can you do for me? You've got to drop everything you're doing and pick up the phone and call various state and local agencies to see how we can all partner together quickly. But specifically, what I've found in economic development and providing service in which you never know who you're going to wake up to for the day, as many of you know as well, is this constant battle of urgent versus important, and always putting out fires in a sense. And what we found is that you can fight that battle of urgent versus important, and you can be flexible, but you can only be effectively flexible if you've got a very specific processes and procedures in place at a foundation level. So if you don't know who's picking up the phone at your front desk because you're out fighting a fire, you're going to have more fires coming your way. But if you've got that contingency plan, you know the details of operations and who's supposed to be where, what reports have to be turned in every day by 5 p.m., then at a higher level you have the ability to clearly make that differentiator for us between urgent versus important and what is every single day the highest priority. And it's hard.
Flexibility in the business plan, flexibility in the business, flexibility with the employees. I think we talked about that briefly this morning about business plan. You have to be flexible. Don't write it and stick it in a drawer. Everybody should know it, have a piece of it, and be able to change what's not working, fail fast.
Yeah. It was about a year and a half ago I was asked to help pull together or implement the company's strategic plan. And we call it Go Power Strategy, and we're using it as 4 key areas: our people, our customers, our business, and our communities. And what we tried to build into that strategy was a lot of flexibility. And of course, from a contingency perspective, the nature of our business anticipates that there will be operational issues day to day. 99.9% of the time or more, most folks don't even know those failures occur because of the contingency planning from an operations standpoint that goes on to anticipate some of those kinds of things. So built into the culture of our company is that anticipation of some of those operational types of things. And so what we tried to build into the strategy, though, was an understanding that we needed to be focused on our people and our customers, our business, and our communities. That makes up a whole of what we do. We say that it's important that we have employees from a people standpoint, that we do effective workforce planning, which means we'll incorporate contingencies for when folks leave or have some other reasons why they can no longer do what we thought they were going to do. So we have to think about that from a people standpoint. And of course, with our customers, we are continually focused on, I think you should be thinking about this too as you deal with those folks whose needs you need. What do you do when data doesn't go right? What do you do when your best laid plan doesn't go right? What are you going to fall back on? And it's always better to have a plan ahead of time that sort of anticipates that and be ready to make some changes and to be flexible with that rather than to try to make a decision on the fly. We've learned that actually. And so it's very, very important to from a planning standpoint, to be prepared, to be ready, to anticipate, and really for us, when we deal with our communities, we are very, very focused on building strong communities and working with each of you and folks like you around the communities to ensure that we have a healthy, viable community. We're all in that as well. We have an objective to ensure that the community does well. We live here. I'm a native personally of this area, but we live here as well, and we want to make sure that our communities are viable and stay healthy. So we're always thinking about what can we do from a contingency standpoint to ensure that value we're delivering doesn't get interrupted in any way, form, or fashion to adversely impact our communities in any way.
I think today's age, and if you notice in the quote, they talk about fast pace. With everything being so fast, we have to be more flexible because things change so dramatically, so quickly. Next thing is probably we've talked about it United Way, our biggest challenge is communicating, implementing the plan, what you write it, how you actually make it happen, how you communicate it out, who has a piece of it, who does which piece of it. And I think sometimes we create these beautiful plans, But then not everybody knows what their piece of that pie is and how it's going to work. So how do you effectively implement your business plan within your organization? How do you get it out? How do you get the team members on board and display that to everybody, share it with everybody effectively?
One of the things we did, as I mentioned earlier, we've got developed our strategy, which has those four components: our people, our customers, our business, and our communities. And what we did was we decided to align each of those four areas with an executive in the company. And so each executive, one of our executives owns, if you will, everybody owns the whole plan, but we kind of put them on point for each one of those parts of the four plan. So we've got an executive over the people part, an executive over the customer part, the business part, and the communities. And each of those executives has a council that is responsible for ensuring that those plans, that aspect of the strategy gets effectively communicated. And so we utilize and leverage every communication tool we have, up to and including, and I think this is going to be maybe a shocker, but what we find is that the most effective communication tool we have is our people. It's not the technology. And I worked as a CIO for 8 years, but I'll tell you, it's not the technology. Because what we find is that supervisors and leaders are the best folks, it's sort of the best way to convey information directly to employees. If you want employees to understand what's going on and things that are happening, we have found that's just an extremely effective way to do that. Of course, we have employees, some are in the office environment, some are in the field environment. They're not always, technology is not always accessible, readily accessible anyway. So we have to be creative and innovative in how we communicate with those folks. But for something like the strategy, we did put it on our intranet. We did utilize our email network. But we also brought all our leaders together and we said, okay, it's your responsibility to ensure that the elements of the strategy is conveyed to all our employees. And we want in their annual plans, performance plans, all elements of this strategy to be reflected so they can connect the dots between here's what I do and here's how it is affected by the strategy we have. So we try to make it incumbent upon our leaders, our supervisors and managers to understand it thoroughly and to convey that information to employees in addition to the technology.
I think like many of you, the Chamber is also a nonprofit, so for you specifically, when you're talking about implementing those business plans or those strategic plans, we have to think about the very specific target audiences or key players that we have that are successful in implementing those plans. So for us, we've got a board of directors, we've got staff, we've got members, perhaps your clients can be the equivalent, and you've got investors who are funding the mission of your organization. And all four of those areas for us are crucial in varying levels of successfully implementing that plan. So like you mentioned, it's not always for us the technology or the fun, cool marketing campaign that communicates how we internally implement it, but it's really the internal accountability we have. So, for example, for us, every staff member, every department head has a correlating vice chairman on our board of directors. And again, it's that relationship and that verbal communication between the staff member and the volunteer on the board of directors that's crucial. Because every time our board meets, if they have a strong understanding of how we're implementing our business plan, how our LEM, our leadership evaluation metric goals, where we stand in those goals on an annual basis, if they understand, it's easier for us to communicate to our investors, hey, thanks for funding our mission, here are the specific metrics we hit. So for us, it's crucial to communicate very differently to each of those targets. We'll talk about implementing our business plan on the staff level very differently than we would at the board level. So for us, it's customizing that message and execution.
I'm also relying on different forms of communication. I agree 100%. Face-to-face is the most effective communication. You want your supervisors, your leaders to deliver that message, but you have to hit people several different ways. So you want to use the internet, you want to use email, you want to use newsletters, you want to use conference calls, you want to use employee forums, whatever tactics you have at your disposal. Over-communicate when it comes to your goals and strategies. Because you can't just tell them once. You can't just get everyone into a room at the beginning of the year and say, here's our strategy, now go execute. This has to be part of your daily conversations. And going back to what JT was saying, it has to be part of the individual's goals as well. They need to see how their individual goals help drive your organization's goals. So if you can give them that personal tie, they will buy into it all.
Top of mind.
Yeah.
that's where those chair people, that chair your committees are extremely important for you to talk to because they're going to be the ones helping you to implement that goal. And it's very important that if you are the sole one, like Lee, I know you're sitting here going, oh no, it's more again, what do I do? That's where that help comes in. That's truly what we need on our boards are those folks who can effectively communicate for us. And the only way that they can do that is if we share this with them and they help us implement it. So very helpful strategies. Okay, so this one, it's a little more top of mind than it may have been 5 years ago, but it is a reality of the world today. Social media, we've even just started looking at taking our website to mobile capability for phones or smartphones because you have to consider that nowadays. You have to consider technology. You have to consider social media with Facebook and LinkedIn and so many folks communicating in that fashion. So maybe you guys could share what effectively is working for your companies as you consider that for nonprofits.
Well, I think the biggest advantage of social media is it does allow you to create a very personal relationship with your clients, with your customers. I think the challenge with social media is don't try to bite off more than you can chew because it does take time to manage, to keep up with the conversation, be a part of the conversation because it is a very dynamic medium. As somebody who works in public affairs, 10 years ago, our role was pushing messages out to the media, trying to get them to cover the story. Very much now, our messaging that's out there in the broader public is driven by what is said on social media, what our customers are saying about us. Also something else that we've learned as a company is that social media is very important for marketing and building those relationships, but it's not a marketing sales tool. We don't try to use social media to try to close the deal with customers. We try to use social media to provide added value. So think about how can you provide added value to your clients, to your board of directors, to your customers out there in the community. I think that's kind of the mindset you should approach social media with. But just because you hear about the latest thing, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google+, whatever it is, don't feel like you have to go out and learn it all. If you're going to do social media, start with one, pick it, try to learn it, do it well. And don't try to be all things to all people with social media. You just can't, especially with it's happening.
I agree. I think part of we of course we're out there on Facebook, Twitter. We're using all kinds of forms of social media across other companies, certainly within Gulf Power, and we actually are thousands of folks are following us and all that. Especially helpful for us during situations when there's outages or other things going on. We can actually inform people much more quickly and effectively through the use of social media oftentimes than we could maybe from a traditional perspective. And we can also let folks know things that are going on. We've had crews just last week from Birmingham helping restore power up there with Alabama Power. And when we had folks go away off into the Northeast and other areas, we use social media to kind of keep folks informed. So it's an information kind of thing. I agree. It's not necessarily something you want to do to close any kind of deal. But I also encourage you to think about your client base, your audience, in terms of what is effective for them, so that you don't spin your wheels feeling like you got to put everything out there on Facebook. You got to do this. You got to do that. We always tell folks that as important as social media is, and it's here to stay, and it's growing, it's not going anywhere. We always try to remind our employees, especially, of the importance of being very, very careful and understanding some of the unintended consequences when it's misused or somehow inappropriately. It's difficult to make sure that folks understand your intent sometimes when you're limited to 140 characters or something like that. So sometimes you have to be very, very deliberate. And if you're trying to help clients and you're trying to deal with issues that are somewhat emotional at times or what have you, you got to be very, very careful with social media because it can sometimes work against you. So you just have to be aware of that.
I'd just like to play off that a little bit. We all love social media because, used to when somebody had a complaint or an issue with you, they told their friends and 10 friends, and now they tell 500 friends. And part of what J.T. said is so very true. The more social media that you are delving into, and you really do need to, but the more you also have to respond to. When folks are out there on your Facebook, making comments or complaints, they have to be responded to, or it's even worse than not doing anything, number one. Number two, they have to be responded to appropriately and quickly. So there's a lot of planning behind how you're really going to roll that out and the things you're going to do with social media. It's not something that you just want to do off the cuff, or you don't want to give a lot of thought to. It's important. It's big. It's important. It's also got to be done.
I think it's also, as JT mentioned, you have to know who your audience is. You have to know who you're speaking to, and what the end game, the messaging you're trying to communicate is. What is your company or your organization's personality? What message are you trying to communicate? And United Way does a great job, and the Chamber's really trying to get there. For us, we need to make sure that our members and our investors feel appreciated. So if we're able to give a corporate shout out to a company that's really helped us reach our mission, or help us, it's a win-win for both of us because they receive coverage. We're able to show our appreciation in kind of a non-traditional way. So there's some really great aspects of how you can utilize it, but again, it's knowing who your target audience is.
And important to capture demographics. There are lots of ways you can do that through social media that are very easy that just take a few steps. You can track the folks who are following you. But it's exactly what they're saying. It needs to be planned and planned effectively. We got into Twitter this year. We didn't plan effectively when we got into it. We're much better in retrospect now because we really didn't count on anybody following us on it, I mean, I guess we thought we'd get out there, but we really wouldn't have anybody respond. What I would suggest that we learned is get those folks who do have that expertise. They want to volunteer with you. This is a great way for them to volunteer. Just make sure you have somebody who can supervise them. Because you got to look at what's being posted. Way to keep employees engaged. For those of you who don't have many staff or any staff, that would be your volunteers. They are your employees. But there's got to be a way for them to have a part in this process where it's going to sit in the door. Or it's not going to be effective because they're not going to be doing their piece of it. So anything you guys would like to share on that one?
I think for us, and one of the favorite examples we've used kind of at the Chamber and both in some seminars we've offered our members is whether you've got specific metric goals where you're always measuring your success based on the numbers you've hit or the number of people you've served or how much money you've raised. For us, and I think for a lot of companies, it's just important to know your connected purpose. Every day when you come to work, how you're answering the phone, what you're doing, what emails you're answering. For example, at NASA, their mission, every single person in that organization, from the janitor to the CEO, their mission every single day, whether they were cleaning bathrooms or cranking out formulas or working on a new invention, was to put man on the moon. Every single person in that organization knew that was their mission every single day when they came to work. And it was important because it was inspirational, and every single person at that organization felt like they were playing a role in making that mission happen. So same thing, I think, for us and in all of our organizations, whether we're nonprofit or for-profit, corporate organizations, it's what do you come to work every day to do? And it's important.
And sometimes it's just helping those people understand how their role does connect to that larger mission. Because even at NASA, the janitor may not have come into the building with that skill set to understand why does my cleaning of the building help us get a man on the moon? But if you sit there and have that conversation and help your team understand that, they will again have that buy-in, something we touched on before. So you got to break those goals down to the individual level. What is it that you're doing every day? Whether it is just answering the phone, whether it's going out and delivering a meal to the community, what is it that you individually are doing that is helping us achieve our mission as an organization?
So, yes, employee engagement is the love of my life. I'm HR. So we actually, we're a big organization, and we have the luxury of having PricewaterhouseCoopers come in and do an employee engagement survey for our employees. We're very proud of it. We have like 90+ participation. But we learn so much from it. It's not just something that we send out there, get our employees to fill out, and forget about. We bring it back in, we do town halls, we do employee forums, we talk about our opportunities, and as well as the positive things that we have going on. We want our employees to know that they're heard, because they are the keys. If they're committed, if they're loyal to you, if they feel engaged, they understand the mission, they understand how their work contributes to the mission, guys have got it going on at that point. That is really, for me, that's a root of a lot of success. So, you know, you're smaller organizations, but I think my advice would just be to listen, to do whatever you can to listen to your employees, to make sure they understand, again, the mission, where they fit in, make sure they're comfortable in their workplace, and you know, they're doing well. And your business will roll on from there. I think that's kind of a bottom level of structure.
Yeah, I think every organization represented out here today is involved in something noble and something that just is a clear benefit to the constituents that you have, the stakeholders in your organizations. And so I think that's one key piece to driving engagement. We're similar. We have, of course, had the engagement surveys that we do annually to find out where our employees are. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, and you can find this probably whether you've got 5 employees or 5,000 employees. I guess it's probably not a lot of difference. People do want to be heard, and I think the important thing is that when this is the feedback we've got, when employees provide their input on those surveys, they always generally will tell us, look, I'm providing you this input, and I want to make sure that it's not embedded. And so the balance to that is that you have to say to employees, I would just encourage you to ask for feedback. If you don't get it routinely, ask employees, what do you think? When you're having sessions, meetings, get them to talk to you about what they think about whatever it is that's going on. And key in on those folks who don't seem to be engaged at all, and maybe find another setting to get them to talk. We have a very engaged workforce. We're very blessed that we have folks who want to be employed at our company and who want to do the things that we're about doing. But I will tell you that if employees feel that they're sharing things with you and you don't respond or you sort of seem like you fall on deaf ear, their engagement wanes. So what we try to tell folks is, listen, I want to hear what you have to say, and it's important to hear what you have to say. But the caveat to that is that we're going to be listening to 1,400 employees, for example, at Gulf Power Company. We may get 800 different thoughts. So just up front, we're not going to do 800 different things. So just be honest, we're going to have to tell it. But we actually do make sure, this is back to the supervisor's management role. It is very, very important to shape those responses through their local leadership so that it's understood that there's only so many things you're going to do across the company, especially if it's a large group. But in every case, employees ought to be able to look to their leadership to have some type of dialogue back and forth that lets them know that they're valued. Because just as people are in families and other segments of our community, people just want to know that they matter. And I think that's true with our employees. They want to know that you care about them. And so we have a huge focus on safety. We want all our employees to understand the importance of leaving work, going home the way they came to work, being healthy. So we try to use those kinds of conversations and subject matters to help drive the engagement, to let employees know that we really do care about them, that there's a concern about you, the person, not necessarily just you, the worker. It's you, the person, that we care about. And I think if you can convey that you care honestly about them as employees, they'll deliver.
I'd add one thing to that. JT talked about the importance of listening to the employees, because when they do provide feedback, and we all provide feedback, the last thing, the worst thing is to never hear another word. So what we found, kind of because we weren't doing it right, is that when we did make changes because of the survey or because of the employee forum or whatever mechanism we used to hear from the employees, we would make the positive change, but we never came back and said, hey, we made this change because you guys told us that we should. So they didn't connect the two up. We didn't close the loop and we didn't connect the two dots. So when we are able to make changes like this, instead you can't make them all far from it. When you do, no one knows because you're they know that's
Very, very good. We do that within United Way with our employees, but more importantly, we try to do that with the agencies. So like funds distribution process last year when we had input, folks said we need to change this and this. send an email out to everybody communicating here's the changes we're making and why, because this is what you said you like to didn't like. Same with the volunteers. We do that with staff as well. Probably not as effectively as we should because it's online often. So very, very good points. I will say it is as important for the employees, I think, to understand how important that business plan or that mission is to you, even that mission statement. I'll tell you this past year, we tweaked our mission statement about a year and a half ago, just a tiny bit. The staff knew it was important because we talked about the number of words and remembering it, so they sang it to happy birthday to me one day in a staff meeting. So they were all engaged and involved. They were innovative and creative, but it played back to, they all knew, we talked about the plan and what part they were playing in and how important it was that first we internalized it before we shared it out. So there could be a way to have fun with it too. I will tell you, I had a grin on my face at the end of that day because I sing off key and many of them do too. So we're going to quickly breeze through some of these, even though I provided some questions for the panel to talk about, just so you guys can look at them, because I really want there to be time for you guys to share with this group as funders, because you get hit up left and right in the community. You do it a little different way, Jennifer, but not quite as much as the other three panel members do. What is important for you to see in stability with an agency or organization that you can reflectively look at and go, well, they got a good plan in place, because I can see it here when they're coming to ask me for money. How does that plan roll? What do you look for in an agency that's coming to you as a funder as far as their planning or their preparation? And just real quickly, so you guys know, because we'll come back around to any of the points you guys want to make on the 10 items that are unexpected in the business plan. One of them is preparing for success. Sometimes we start a new program and we had no clue how big it was going to be or how much the need was, or at least not the extent. So remember, that has to be a part of the business plan, and there has to be a commitment to follow that plan by every member of the team. You've got to communicate it. You got to know that we're all committed to this. And then in some ways, we don't prepare enough in a business plan for exit plan. With executive directors, that's extremely true. We don't do a lot of succession planning, so that's a whole other level with the business plan, but it is something to think about. And then psychographics, which Larry touched on very briefly this morning when he was doing the business plan. Psychographics are why people are making the choices they make. You need to have that somewhere in your business plan. The emotional buy-in that somebody has with you, with your organization, is because a friend, a brother, a sister was helped by your organization. What are the psychographics, the demographics, to look at a picture, the emotional side of why people do things with you. So those are the other four things. So if y'all don't mind sharing, when somebody's coming to you and they want you to partner, or they want you to give them some money, they want you to be involved with them, what are you looking for as far as their preparation or their planning? What do you see in a good candidate and a bad one?
I guess I'll start. For me, we're going to look at a few things. First of all, that you guys don't have much control over because you are, starting to mention each other. So, what is your goal? We're obviously going to support nonprofits who are supporting the military, and also the community, and what our employees like to see, especially in the community. So for me, when folks come, and they do, the organization is so very important. When you come in and talk to us about, supporting or joining in a project or partnering, please go ahead and have the idea of what you would like from us, how we are partnering. I've had folks come in and say, hey Carol, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so, and we'd like to partner with you. And that's it. That's really it. And please, if you would come prepared, so many times, we can do things at different levels, sometimes smaller levels, sometimes bigger levels. But if you let us know what it is you need from us, how much time it's going to take, how much resources you need from us, just really be specific about your mission, what you need from us, how we are partnering, what the outcome is, and basically how the community is affected. It's the organization and the planning. Also, from time to time we get involved with issues or situations or projects that just don't run smoothly because the organization is just not done very well. And bluntly, we're not going to do that again. That would be all one time. So just really be plan well, and know what it is that you want from us, and express that to us.
I would echo every one of those thoughts that Carol said, and just add a few more things. I think you need to do a little research on the businesses you're approaching for partnerships or support, and understand what their key goals are when it comes to their charitable giving and their community relations activities, and try to make sure that the project you're going to them for aligns with that. You know, for Cox, our key charitable giving areas are youth, education, and technology. If you meet one of those three criteria, you're at least going to get a foot in the door. It doesn't mean we don't consider there's a lot of other environmental causes, economic development issues that we do support in the community, but you get an extra level of importance, so to speak, at the table if you do meet one of those. So do a little research on the organization and find out what it is that they are trying to do in the community. The other thing is, this may sound a little selfish, but we like to do business with people who do business with us. So we're going to ask you, do you have Cox services at your business? You know, so it's like, you know, if you don't, you need to be able to explain why. Maybe you don't live in, maybe your business or your office is not located in the Cox service area. Maybe there's some other reason you don't, and that's fine. There are times we don't support, you know, we support organizations who aren't in our footprint. But for the most part, you know, we want people who do business with us. And finally, I would just say, be willing to accept no, but understand that no is not always permanent. You know, sometimes maybe the funds are already budgeted for this year, or we don't have the in-kind support that we can give you at this time. But it doesn't mean we wouldn't ever support you. A no sometimes can be temporary, but take that graciously and know that you can always ask us again for support.
I think I echo everything that was said, and I'll add to that when it comes to the part about understanding who you're approaching. You heard me talk earlier about one of the four pillars, if you will, of our strategy is our communities. And our desired outcome from that is that we will be involved in helping to build strong communities. And so for us, of course, education is a key piece of that. Community viability is a key piece of that. So when you approach Gulf Power Company, of course, we have a foundation, and we also have other means of supporting, you know, initiatives and things in the community. But I think that the important things have been said. We definitely want to know that what you're bringing to the table, or what you're coming to ask for, is going to have an impact in the areas that we're talking about, that we're focused on. We serve from Pensacola to Apalachicola. We have 400 some odd thousand customers, and probably more than that in terms of people. That's just numbers of meters. So we have a broad interest across our region for successful communities. And so what we are going to always look for, and sometimes you believe it or not, everybody that comes doesn't come the same way. They'll I've had something as informal as a phone call with somebody seeing me at a meeting or something and saying, hey, we need $500 or whatever. And I always go back and say, I need to put it in writing, give us a letter, explain to us what it's about. So being very intentional and deliberate in your requests is very important. And I think when you understand, for example, I don't know, it's probably hard to get all this in, but the budgeting cycle, when companies that you're approaching, sometimes if you understand that the budget cycle begins this month or that month, think about your requests aligning with that, because as we make decisions on what we're going to do, we sort of do it from an annual perspective, and don't have a lot of contingency around, folks that just kind of jump in sideways at different times. So think about that as you're beginning to make your requests as well.
I would just echo that. That is so crucial, guys. If we closed our budget, as JT mentioned, there's very little left. So trying to get on that side to get that request in, and you're much more likely to find a response to it.
You guys have questions of this marvelous panel.
I agree with you. I'm looking at some of the global corner. We teach kids about other countries and cultures with a long-term goal of creating a workforce that speaks multiple languages and attract international business. But one of my board members, when we're talking about the difficulty that we've been having raising funds, is that she said, we're just not competitive enough. That we're not solving the world number. We're not, taking people off the streets. We're not doing that. We're trying to create a community that will remove some of the problem. So how do we get businesses to understand that we want to jump ahead to be proactive?
I would say that you hit on a strong spot for us. Yes.
prove to the business that, look, here is the difference we have already made. We've been around for this many years, and here's what we have done. You know, it's not just this big lofty goal. It's here's some measurable results. That's how business operates. So if you can kind of translate that into that business speak, I think that would help.
And I think as David mentioned previously when he was talking about, they always ask kind of selfishly whether they're, you know, those asking for funds from COPS, whether they're COPS estimates as well. It's kind of an interesting point because the chamber, we don't necessarily support nonprofits. We have money because we are a nonprofit ourselves. We're kind of in that same situation as you, where we're an organization that's trying to kind of be proactive and get in front of that community need. And for us, when we were raising funds for our economic development campaign, it was a matter of us communicating what our end goal was going to be, and then how then in turn that had an effect on our donors. So like, you know, like our panelists mentioned, if your mission in the end is going to provide a better educated workforce for them in future years, you hit on a sweet spot. Same thing for us. If we're able to say, hey, Sandy, it'd be great if you'd be a Vision 2015 investor, because we have 3,000 new jobs in the community by 2015. That's going to mean we're going to have this much more spending in cars. We're going to have this many more people in the community that will have kind of that multiplier effect on our economy. So how can you communicate that benefit?
So take it off of your mission and the poor pitiful me and put it on the business and know the business you're approaching.
Very good.
Anybody else? Please help me thank these wonderful folks.